Welcome back to Bleav in Softball. I'm your host, Jenna, and it's a big week for softball. I feel like I can say that most weeks during the season, but it just gets more and more true as we get further and further through conference play and even start thinking about postseason a little bit. And it goes beyond the college game too and into the larger softball community. So however you got here today, whether it was an audio podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, etc., or watching on YouTube, thank you. Subscribe and rate if you haven't yet. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bleav in Softball. That's BLEAV. Click the link in our bio on either page or go to shop.bleav.com to purchase merch. 3 shirts available for you, covering our bases, safer out, and catch you soon. All right, let's go through today's batting order. First, we'll be covering our bases. I'll give you some news and call-outs from around the softball world. Then we'll head into today's interview with Monica Abbott. She doesn't really need an introduction, but we'll give her one anyway in a little bit. But she was actually a guest back in season 1, episode 12. That was 3 years ago. And now here she is back in season 4. And this is our 113th episode ever. So 100 episodes later, a lot has changed. Then we'll end things with the foul tip of the week, where we share tips to help us get better. All right, let's get started. Covering our bases. BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL, hockey, right to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use your promo code BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Today, first, where I'm going to start is, you know what? We got the ultimate pro for today's interview, so let's start with pro ball today. First, I want to start with WPF draft takeaways. So first of all, let's just look at the first round. 4 teams, as we know, and it went number 1 overall was OU's Alex Storako, the Michigan transfer who ended up going to Norman. She's going to the Oklahoma Spark. UW's Bailey Klingler going to the Texas Smoke. Pretty cool because she's from Texas as well. Number 3 was Tennessee's Ashley Rogers going to Smash It Sports Vipers. And then number 4 was UCLA's Megan Faramo going to the USSSA Pride. So what a cool way to just start off the draft. It felt like it started off with a bang. But a few other things too that I just want to kind of call out from the first in-person draft that we've been able to experience for WPF, but also just in so long for pro softball. So there were some late steals as well. I talked about the first round, but if you look at the last round, there were a few where people were surprised that they were still on the board. Grace Lyons, the Oklahoma shortstop, she's a back-to-back national champion, didn't go to the last round. Montana Fouts, Alabama's pitcher, we all know she's an All-American, but really the face of Alabama softball for the last 5 years. And then Jordan Rudd, too, the catcher from Northwestern. I mean, she was the 2022 Johnny Bench Award winner, a.k.a. Catcher of the Year on a national scale. So they were all steals, in my opinion, going in the last round. And then actually some talent that was left out of the draft portion specifically doesn't mean they won't play more. We might still be able to watch them. We still have the rest of their seasons this year in college to watch before pro anyway. But one is the other side of the battery for Northwestern, Danielle Williams, the pitcher. She put the team on her back, that lefty did last year, taking Northwestern to the Women's College World Series. Then you have Alyssa Bonstrom, Utah, first baseman. She's an All-American, and Utah's been on a tear so far this season. Sydney McKinney, which people keep saying we're sleeping on her. Wichita State, shortstop, reigning batting champion, on track to do it again this year in NCAA softball. So a few people that we should keep our eyes on too, just to see how things play out and if they'll get an opportunity to play beyond college. But some other highlights that just felt like really cool moments and elements to this whole thing. The fact that Oklahoma City Spark, OKC Spark, gets to play in Oklahoma City, the Mecca, we all call it this, for softball. It's Hall of Fame Stadium, where the World Series is. And it's cool because Storako, as mentioned, the number 1 pick, she's not from Oklahoma, but she's going to OU right now. She'll get to stick around in the state. And then Dels from Arkansas. This is someone that I know that one of our past guests, Courtney Deifel, was very excited about. Actually worked at the stadium. She's from there, from OKC. Hasn't gotten to play there before. And now she pitches for Arkansas, and she's going to get to play as a professional in that stadium. So awesome. Another thing, too, as we've talked about before with just the WPF teams, the MLB player Brandon Phillips. So him investing in women's sports, actually just in general, is something that's worth calling out every time. And then his wife came from women's basketball as well, and she's a pro wrestler. So they were there at the draft too. And I think it's just a key call out, something that they brought up themselves too, is that like, yeah, hopefully more Major League Baseball players will end up investing in this sport for women. Jerry Glasgow, also the Louisiana and Vipers head coach, when he was asked in the post-draft show how men can support women, he said, let's just do what we can and then get out of the way and let women lead softball, because that's really what softball is a women-led sport, which I like that answer. I thought it was a really thoughtful response. And then you think about Kelly Kretschmann, for example, over a decade of a career that she had with the Pride when she played. Now she's head coach. We all know about her legendary experience with Team USA, at Alabama, et cetera. And so now that she gets to truly pay it forward, pay it back with that exact team that she played for is really, really awesome. So it was really cool to just see her there and just sort of what she symbolizes as well. And also just the post-draft show, credit to D1 softball led by Tara Henry too. I mean, they had owners, coaches, current players that are already on these pro rosters come in that they got to talk to. And I think that was a really cool element that was after the show as well. And as I mentioned last week, what I was looking forward to, the drip was there. Power suits, cool shoes, like people came out with some good fits. And I was excited to see that just show up the way that I hoped it would. And just like to give a little bit of oomph and like a little bit of a lift for professional softball players. Opening day is June 15th. So get ready to see these 4 teams: the Spark, the Vipers, the Smoke, and the Pride play. Then also, let's not forget, the Athletes Unlimited College Draft is coming up. So it's going to be May 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Athletes Unlimited YouTube channel. So AUX is going to run right after the World Series, June 9th through the 25th, but then season 4 starts July 28th through August 27th. So we'll get another draft for some more pro softball too coming up soon. The second thing that I wanted to bring up, I mentioned it briefly, is Utah's success. This is a team, like for context, that were picked 8th in the Pac-12 preseason coaches poll, and they right now, going into this weekend, are in second place outright by themselves. They've already surpassed their win total from last year. We are just over a little halfway through conference play. They were 27-27 and just missed postseason last year. Now they're already 29-4 going into this weekend, and it is their best Pac-12 start ever since being in the conference, which is the first season was 2012. So just thinking about this, though, I love to see when the underdog comes out on top or is coming out on top, because they still have a journey in front of them. But I like to also figure out how, like what is it that's helping them do that? So my latest article with Softball America came out this week. It's called How Utah is Stepping Over the Line This Year. It talks about a few different ways that they're really making it happen. I mean, they're very scrappy. They have a growth mindset from the top down with head coach Amy Hogue. And there is a balance of power in terms of the staff, but also just the leadership from everywhere in every class that they have. So learn more about how they're doing it and what their motto is this year, step over the line, what that means. And, you know, got some huge Pac-12 series coming up, like I said, with Washington, UCLA, and Oregon, who are all ranked. So is Utah. So it's going to be fun to watch. So take a look at that. It's on my Twitter, and as well as Bleav in Softball's Twitter has also retweeted it. So easy to find there, or just go to softballamerica.com. Third is my broadcast schedule this weekend. Had some midweek games this week, like I mentioned in the last episode. This weekend, calling the Cal-Stanford series in Palo Alto on Pac-12 Network. It's the Battle of the Bay. You know, rivalries hit different. I say that all the time. And you have 2 All-American alums in Chelsea Spencer and Jessica Allister going at it, leading their teams. Like, they played against each other in college. They respect each other a ton, but they are 2 of the most competitive people that I have ever met. And I've had them both on the show before. I mean, Allister a couple of times. She was on earlier this season as well, but also just getting to watch them both be change makers at their alma maters to improve those programs every single year since they've been there has been outstanding. So you just don't want to miss this one. Definitely tune in. And then to bring it home, another exciting thing happening this weekend, our guest, Monica Abbott, going to be in Knoxville. Tennessee is hosting Florida. Back on Rocky Top for this SEC series will be Monica Abbott. She's debuting something pretty special while she's there too. She's got a new book coming out, which we'll get into a little bit too today. So you got to keep listening and you'll get some more details on that. So stay with us to find out more from today's guest, and let's head into the interview. She is a legendary, newly retired Team USA pitcher, 2-time Olympic silver medalist, 16-year pro, 6-time Japan Softball League champion, 5-time NPF League champion, Tennessee Hall of Famer, 4-time All-American, and NCAA record holder in multiple categories, the legendary lefty, Monica Abbott. How was that intro,
Hey.
Monica?
Oh, wow, what an intro. I mean, the only reason it was so long is because I played forever. But no, thank you for that wonderful intro, and so glad to be, back on the show with you.
Yeah, well, trust me, it took a while to even condense it down to that. But wanted to reflect all the things that you've done because you've touched so many different parts of this game and left an impact. So I'm so
Thank
happy
you.
to have you back.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been blessed to be able to play. I had such a good career, right? I played so long, and a lot of doors really opened up to me. And when you're 12 and you first start pitching or playing or falling in love with the game, or when you go to college and you're like, wow, this is so fun. I'm doing great. Like, this is, it's competitive. It's cool. Like, it's even a higher level than what you're used to. At every different level of play, there's been different challenges, but also different opportunities that have come along with it. And I've been lucky enough and blessed enough to try to just continue to grow as an athlete. And I think as I did that, it helped me. It really helped me continue to play through all those years and achieve some pretty cool stuff along the way.
Well, yeah, the longevity of your career is also awesome. And even the last time we had you on the show was 3 years ago. We were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. Back in season 1 in 2020. So much has happened since then.
So
And
much.
right? Like for you, I'm thinking Olympics, your wedding, and then now retirement also. Like so much has changed since then. But how's it been just kind of transitioning into this new retired life that you're in?
It's been really good. I really can't. I played so long, and when it came down to it, I was kind of like, okay, here I am in my mid 30s, and I'm like, okay, I could probably throw 75 miles an hour until I'm 40, like 45, 50. Like, I could Tom Brady it. Like, why not? Like, why not? And
Yeah.
at certain points of my career, I was thinking that. But then as I was coming into, pre-Olympic, post-Olympic and everything, I started to think, especially in the last year, like this last 2022, this year 2022, I started to think like, wow, like I'm out here playing, practicing, spending all this time training and to compete at this high level. And I love it. But I also started to get this like nagging feeling that, hey, like the impact that you can have off the field, the impact that you can have by sharing the game in other ways now, besides just throwing a 75 mile per hour rise ball or, a 53 mile per hour changeup. Like, yeah, that's fun and it's exciting to watch and be a part of and train for. But and you've impacted the current players that are the pros and that are the Olympians. So how can you continue to impact the sport outside of the circle? And that's really what it came down to for me. I felt like, hey, like I could go on forever throwing and throwing rise balls, but I think for me, I felt like I could have a greater impact, off the field. I could have a greater impact and help continue to grow the sport, right? To make changes, evolve it, and continue to evolve it and grow off the field. Yeah. So, or out of the circle. I mean, I'm still gonna be at a softball field somewhere.
I was going to say, yeah, we know that, right?
Yeah.
Well, because I remember asking you last time, I was like, well, whenever you do retire, like who knows when that would be, right? At that point.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think you would do? And you did talk a lot about that impact. But what I think is cool as well is that you have already had that sort of off the field impact while you've still been playing.
Mm-hmm.
And now you get to just sort of like focus on that full time, which is really, really cool to see.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I think the hardest part is just trying to figure out how, right? Like there's so many ways and levels to contribute. So now I got to try to like weed through that. And I'm a beginner again. I'm kind of like in a weird place where I'm a beginning retired athlete, but also still have so much knowledge because I have done so many things while I was playing. Like I did so many events and public speaking and education things and even TV while I was playing, that like now I have all these different types of tools and experience, and I just need to figure out where I feel like my time can be spent the best and where I can feel like I can have the biggest impact in as well.
Yeah. Well, your retirement announcement video, I think, had such a big impact. Like, it was so emotional, it was personal. And I mean, were you overwhelmed by all the support you got? Because I saw so much on social media and just all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, I really was. It was that retirement video. I mean, gosh, it was hard to film actually. I think I had to come to peace with the fact that I wanted to, and I was going to retire. So I had to come to peace with that first before
Yeah.
I could even record the video, right?
Yeah.
And then how do you sum up your how much you're invested? How do you sum up your investment for like 30 years playing the game, right? Like trying to push the game forward. How do you sum that up as an athlete in, I don't know, a minute? Like
Yeah.
that's
Right.
hard. That's hard. But it was really incredible to see how many people came out and just supported me, and just, I mean, so many people messaged me, emailed me, texted me, called me, all the things. And people that I played with my rookie year versus like my senior year, my last year, from high school all the way through like my last year of play. And it was really cool to hear some of those stories, and um, how the softball community really rallied around it.
Yeah. It was awesome to watch and, you know, just see the appreciation, right? Because we all feel these things and we all appreciate people who make a big impact, but in the big moments, that's when everyone expresses it, and
Right.
that you actually get to feel it a little bit more. And that was very cool to watch that unfold.
Yeah. When it was kind of cool, and big shout out to Kirk Walker and Deb Hartwig from the Mary Nutter Classic in Palm Springs in Cathedral City. They really made it happen for me to be able to have my last pitch. And that was something I'd always wanted to do. I had wanted to have like a little tour or something where people could come to a last game, right?
Yeah.
And but when I had that, first my last pitch at the beginning of the UCLA OU game, I threw that, and um, when I walked off the field, that's like when it kind of hit me. It was like just tears, and I could see Deb and Kirk and even Lisa Fernandez, who I had played with, way back when
Yep.
I was still in college, and through the 2008 Olympic year and process, and just like a sense of like, oh gosh, like, oh, this is the real end, like this is the closing of like an era. And like it gets to you like when you think about it in depth like that. Like even now, like I'm like, don't cry, Monica, don't cry. But even now, like I never saw myself as an athlete like that when I was playing. I knew that I had unreal talent compared to other people. Like later in my career, like I knew, wow, not everyone throws 75. Like, why is everyone now bending over when they pitch? Like,
Yeah.
all those things. But I didn't realize it was in that moment when you could see and you could feel the emotion, not only from, my peers, but from people from all ages, whether they were currently 12 years old in their first year of softball, or, they were coaches of, one of the top teams in the country, like across all generations and ages. So that was really, really humbling and so heartwarming.
It was really cool to witness
Yeah.
because it would even just the juxtaposition of like you there and everything that you've accomplished with the current players too on the field. And I saw
Yeah.
you got to talk to them, right, too, and have that connection. And it was just really cool to see that bridge between,
Yeah.
your time in at least collegiately to
Hmm.
what's going on today. And I was so glad that you had that moment too, because you had to have something, it's like it wouldn't have been fitting without some sort of moment. So I'm really
I
happy
know.
for you.
And think, shout out again just to like Kirk Walker, Deb Hartwig, and then the UCLA softball team organization for actually helping put that together, because they were the host of the tournament, and making it happen at that game, one of the biggest games of the weekend. So, just I can't say thank you enough. And like, it's just so humbling because, I didn't go to UCLA. Like I wasn't, that wasn't my school, but I think just the class act of people in softball, like, wow, how much has this sport grown? And it's just incredible how we've been able to uplift each other and uplift this sport when we put that first.
Yes. Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I think the softball community is special. I mean, I think we're obviously biased when it comes to feeling that way, but still, this was an example of that. You're 100% right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even though you didn't go to UCLA or OU or those places that were at that particular event, you were the first All-American ever from Tennessee, and you paved the way for SEC talent and that pipeline that today has just grown tremendously. Right. So I know you said you've kind of reflected now, like now it's sort of hit you on your impact, but like, do you grasp the full impact of what you've had on that program and that conference really?
I don't know. I'm going to Tennessee. And I think a lot of people know I have this book coming out. So last year I wrote this book about my life story, and the authors actually were big Tennessee fans when I played there. And I was really close with one of their daughters who went to school with about the same age as me. And so we're re-debuting it at the Tennessee-Florida game, and pretty excited about doing that. But they also want to throw in like this aspect of, okay, Monica finished her career kind of thing too. And, I feel like I was in college so long ago. So like in some ways I'm like, okay, yeah, I know I made an impact on this program. I know I helped it grow and evolve. But I mean, you got to think like as an 18, 19, 20-year-old, like, did you really? Like, you almost have like this fake like persona because you're just like, there's no way it was really me. Like, was that me? Like, I did that? Well, it wasn't. And to that sense, it wasn't just me, but I think when you think about it, it's the supporting staff that's involved with you, right? Like it's those coaches, it's the athletic directors, it's the coaches that are playing against you. Like, it raised the level, right? It raised the level because it raised the motivation, and it raised the inspiration of other schools, of the program, of the university, of women's sports. And when you can raise motivation, you can inspire so many things in people because they wake up excited, right? You wake up excited to attack something and make a change. And I think when I think about my career at Tennessee and the impact it had on the SEC, that's what I think about. I think me going there sent some shockwaves through the softball community, but really what it did once I played and helped lead that team, it really raised the level of everyone around me, of those support staffs, of the ADs, of the coaches within the university and throughout the SEC. And when you can do that, I mean, that can create a ripple effect, right? That can create growth.
Yes. And it's like you raise the motivation, and that does translate to inspiration, but also like investment, to your point, like with the whole staff and all kinds of investment, time, effort, money, all of the different ways that you can invest.
100%, 100%, 100%. Like they opened the Tennessee current softball stadium the year after I left. I mean, and it's beautiful. It was the best stadium when it opened, and it's still the best, but I think it's getting some updates soon. But no, I mean, it does. It really does. And it creates that investment of time, money, and of effort.
Yes.
Yeah.
And gosh, you've done so many things. So it's like, I feel like I could skip around and ask you 5,000 questions, right? But looking now, because you started playing, to your point, with Team USA while you were in college. And it was like a 20-year career with Team USA. And you were one of the youngest in that 2008 team. at the Olympics,
Yeah.
and then one of the oldest in the 2020 team in Tokyo. What do you
Yeah.
think this like the biggest things were that you learned about yourself and life maybe through that experience?
Um, yeah. So, yeah, I was the youngest in the 2008 Olympic Games. I played in 3 different decades for Team USA.
Yes.
Should I be laughing? I don't know if I should be laughing or if I should. I'm laughing because I'm like
I
proud,
think
but
you
also like a little like, oh my gosh, did I really?
I think it's worth a laugh. You earned a laugh for sure.
And, and then in 2020, 2021, gosh, I would say, I would say just if I could say anything, I always think about, my professional career. And I think one, consistency, right? Like consistency made a huge impact for me. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't say anything else but consistency. And then um, the other thing was being able to make small changes
Mm,
over a big period of time. I never made huge dramatic changes all of a sudden. I would just make small little changes, small and keep trying to adjust. Small changes over a long period of time made a great improvement for me. And then yeah, I think those are two of the biggest themes in my career. And then when something came up, or whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, whether it was a door closed or a door open for me, I took it the same. Like I would give it my best effort and try to capture the opportunity when a door opened, and challenge people like, hey, like you're only offering me this, like can I have this, and can I come back to this number instead? How can we get to this?
yeah.
And negotiations. And at times during my career, people didn't like that I did that, but it was needed, right? Like, I mean, female athletes have value, softball players have value. I think we see that, right? We see that on even with the name, image, likeness, NIL. I mean, look, like, is Jocelyn Allo driving a brand new Toyota car all over Oklahoma? Was she last year? Like, I mean, all those things, like we're seeing that people have value, right?
Yeah.
And softball players have value. But when I was asking people, maybe they didn't really like it. So that was tough. But do you just kind of like quit and give up? Or do you just keep kind of going, slowly working the relationship and creating a space where it's comfortable to have not only the tough conversations, but to celebrate the good, right? Like
Mm,
if you want to celebrate a championship, if you want to celebrate, throwing 75 miles an hour, breaking a strikeout record, if you want to celebrate something with a group of people, you sure as heck better be able to find a way to be comfortable enough to be able to have those tough conversations sometimes.
mm,
And hopefully you don't have to have a lot of them,
yeah.
but sometimes they're needed. They're needed to push you to be able to do something outstanding.
That touches on just the authenticity piece too, right? And
Mhm.
like you're talking about consistency, and it makes me think physically, absolutely, in terms of training, but the mentally, like how you approach things, and even emotionally, it sounds like, right? Like helped, like having that consistent approach has
Mhm.
helped you throughout every stage of your career, which is great.
Yeah. I think, when you start to get too high or too low, that's when you start to really get peaks and valleys, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and everyone experiences them, you get
Yeah.
really high, you get really low. I mean, I've had them. I've had them. I experienced it a lot in college. I had to learn the hard way, I had
Yeah.
highs of highs and lows of lows, and I had to find a way to be mentally consistent, like to be mentally consistent with my feelings and emotions, and to channel them in a way that was productive.
Mm. And it was productive. How cool is it? I read that in fifth grade, you said you were going to be an Olympic athlete someday, and that you actually did it, right?
No, I know, right? Okay, yes. And actually the book goes over that story, but like how cool is it? So like it's kind of wild. In fifth grade, I don't know if they still do this, but the school I went to, they do state reports.
Yes.
Okay. And in fifth grade, like I hadn't been anywhere. Like, I hadn't been anywhere. So I was like, how about I could do like Nevada because it was next to California? I was like, that state's next to California. Like, can I pick Nevada? I did. And the teacher like drew states, right? Like you got everyone, and it was like a raffle kind of thing. I didn't
Yeah.
get Nevada. Everyone put their top three choices. I think I put two. I wanted Nevada or Hawaii because I saw it on like a TV.
Yeah.
I didn't get either choice. I didn't get either one. And at this point, what's crazy about this story is at this point, I hadn't. So in the spring of my fifth grade year, that's when I had started pitching. That's when I had my first pitching lesson. The report that I was assigned in like the fall, and it was like a year-long report. Okay. So I get assigned Georgia. I was so mad. I was like, this state, why do I have to have this state? It's all the way on the other side of the country. Like, I don't even know where that state is. Like, I'm like, I don't even know where that state is. Like, who's ever heard of Georgia? Like, what? And so I'm doing this state report, and you have to like research all the things, like when was it founded? What's it famous for? What industry? All these sort of things. And moral of the story, you never know, because it was 1996. The Olympic Games were hosted in Atlanta, Georgia that year. And I wrote the governor and all this stuff, and they sent me pictures back with like the Olympic stuff. And I had just started like softball and pitching. So there was like, they had like the post office or something had like these promo stamps or postage stamps. And so I convinced my mom to give me some for the report so I could get an A.
I love that.
So I got these stamps and I put them in the report. And there was like this special section on the Olympics are going to be hosted in Atlanta, Georgia in 1996, like da-da-da-da-da. And so there was a little softball one, and that was the sport I played at the time.
Yeah.
When it was due. So I put it and I wrote next to it, I'll see you there. I'll be in the circle. And yeah. And then I actually ended up doing it. It was my first year pitching, and wow. Yeah.
I mean,
so yeah, that was my fifth grade state report. And who would have thought that, I guess I made it happen by writing it down.
Yeah. I mean, that is manifestation, to a T. But I mean, such a cool story. Like, I have chills just thinking about how full circle that is. And so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, and then, yeah, I'll never forget it because I wrote it down in the report. Like, I didn't want to write it. And my mom was like, oh, no, I bought you the stamps. Like, you need to write it. Like, this was the deal, Monica.
That's so funny.
And of course, like when you're, at that age, you're just like, oh, I'm embarrassed. But I wrote it in there. See you there. I remember I tried to write it like, font was size 14 or size 12 reading font. And then like, see you there was like size 10 because I was nervous that the teacher wouldn't like it.
Oh my gosh. That's so well, I'm sure your teacher eventually liked it later down the line.
Yeah, I got an A, so that's good.
There you go.
Fifth grade.
That's so cool. I'm excited to read more, like, just of the entire story too. And so in terms of your book, we've talked about it a couple times. It's called Rise and Shine, the Monica Abbott Story, right? And you said the release date's coming up, but just so everyone knows, like, they can pre-order it on Amazon. Is that right? Yes, it's currently you can pre-order on Amazon. Once the books are like so the book, we're going to debut the book, the Tennessee versus Florida series at Tennessee. So that's going to be like the official launch party and stuff like that. And then, so you can pre-order on Amazon currently. And then after that following week, if you want to get like a signed copy, you would be able to get that from my website after it debuts at the game. So amazing. Yeah, that's kind of the deal. It took me about a year to do, but it's I think 7 chapters. It's a quick, fun read, 150 pages, I think 175 pages. Nice.
And there's 7 chapters which kind of go off the themes of obviously my story, but
Yeah.
growing up, youth softball, how I got started, all those things like the state report. And then it goes into my college years at Tennessee and the SEC. Then there's the 2008 Olympic Games, the 2021 Tokyo Games, and then my international experience with Toyota and the Japan League, and then professional in the playing professionally in the United States, and then women's empowerment. So there's a big, obviously, I feel like there's been such a big theme over the course of my career and in my life, just like in my life in general, of just women's empowerment, women's confidence, all those things, Title IX, all those things that have made a difference in my life, but have also ran through my career, like the $1 million contract and all of that, or the world record of 77 miles an hour, like all those things. So, and then the last chapters on that. The book is targeted to middle school and high school students, but there's a huge theme for anyone, obviously adult women as well, that, maybe have faced trouble with understand the women's movement and the women's empowerment struggle and why it's so important. So yeah, that's
I'm really
Rise and Shine, the Monica Abbott story.
Yes, I love it. I'm so excited for it. And I love that you basically went from writing that state report to, yes, you went to the Olympics, and then here you are writing a book. So it's like, let's take it even further, That's
I know.
amazing.
And then whenever kids, sometimes I'll get these random messages on, hey, like, I'm doing a report in school and I wanted to do it on you. Like, sometimes they'll say this, like, we have to do it, as a report. I'm like, yes, I will answer.
Yeah.
Let me prioritize you, because
I love
someone did for me back in the day. So yeah.
Now we got to get some Monica Abbott postage stamps so that they can get their A,
Well, I don't think they use stamps anymore. It's just more like email now.
That's true. Good point. I just aged myself too. So there we go.
Yeah. I didn't want to age myself, but I did.
Oh, that's so funny. But yeah, you said it too, specifically the $1 million contract with the NPF, and there are things like that paved the way for women. And I loved Graham Hayes's story on your retirement for D1 softball. And he basically referred to you as one of the things, because I loved multiple things in it, but one of the things was, he said it was the tail end of a generation expected to be thankful for whatever crumbs were thrown their way, and the vanguard of a generation with the tools to demand better.
Yeah.
So well said. And exactly what you were touching on before, which is, people didn't like that I would push back and try to like negotiate and really try to push, but it wasn't really just for you, was it? It was like for women as a whole too, which is incredible.
I think I really I have tons of stories, right? And I'm sure like a lot of softball players, before me and right around my generation do, there was a lot of like, hey, you should be grateful for this. Hey, you should be thankful for this. Da, 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 da. But at one point you have to ask yourself, like, hey, like, do I need to be so thankful that I can't take care of this, this, and this, or my other responsibilities? Like, where does that draw the line? Right. And, when you're blessed with a certain ability, I think it's also, you're blessed and have to take initiative to have a certain amount of responsibility too, right? Like, you have to be able to push. I don't love that word push, but you have to be able to ask the hard questions, have the tough conversations, and push for them to be better, right? Be better, do better. Let's find a way. Let's not go back and say, oh, you should be grateful. You should be grateful. No, let's find a way to make it better. Like, how can we do this? What do we have to do?
Yeah. That kind of feels like when we talk about just always competing, even just as players, it feels like it's like you keep competing. You don't just give up, right? Like, even if something's off that day, like, I don't know, maybe your rhythm's off in the circle and whatever, but you're still going to compete to try to put the best pitch together that you can in that moment, right? Like, even if you're not feeling 100%, or even if things are hard, like, you still have to compete. We all have to compete for ourselves and for each other in life, and I don't know, not to compete against each other, but to compete with each other in that way.
Right. Yeah. I think yeah, competition, iron sharpens iron, competition breeds competition. And I think that that can be a really good thing if used the right way. And but you can also direct it, right? Like you can
Yes.
guide it in the way that you want it. And that's the part that sometimes we miss. It's like we're so caught up in competing that we forget about the way and the direction that we want to lead the competition. We want to lead that battle. You can guide it, right? Like you can guide it to a certain objective, as long as you know what that objective is that you want.
Right. So there's that like self-awareness piece too. You have to
Mm-hmm.
understand that, like what is it that you want and what is it that we all want collectively.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well,
cool. So
you
cool.
have been able to guide it in a very good direction in terms of your career. I think we all know that. But when you look at like the Moniacs, everyone
Yeah.
of yours, and even just people in general, like what is it that you want them to take away from you? Like, what do you want your legacy and hope that it is to be?
I think just like obviously, talented softball player, right? But I think I really want them to be able to say like, hey, she pushed the game forward. Like
Yeah.
she created better opportunities for me to be able to play. Because she went through that, I could do this. I think that is powerful. Because she started this, like, hey, now I know what it looks like, right? I think I know what it looks like to be the $1 million arm. I know what it looks like to be a professional. Like, hey, it's not just playing. I need to have a newsletter. Like, I need to have my own private email list. I need to, maybe put on camps and educate. Like, how can I diversify myself as a professional athlete? And what does that look like, not only athletically, but off the field as well? Like, how do I carry myself? How do I speak to the youth? How do I speak to parents? What standards do I hold? What is the model? I think that's what I hope I was able to portray to multiple people.
Well, speaking for myself, I think you have, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree. But I also love your website because you just mentioned that as a resource too, to see all the different things that you're doing
Mm-hmm.
to impact the game. That's how I first heard about your book too, was even just like taking a look at your website. Also, by the way, this is kind of a side note, but I love you have the photos of you just mid pitch in like all of your different pro uniforms.
Oh, thank you.
Next to each other, and it's so cool just to see that because it's seeing the evolution and just all the things that you've done, at least in that case in the pro level. And it was a really cool like visual. So I just had to tell you that.
Thank you. Yeah. I love that. Actually, Jade Hewitt helped me kind of create that creatively. I had the idea and she helped me find a way to execute it. And it was honestly, it's kind of one of those things where I think you start to be known for different things, right? Like I was known as a USA player, a scrapyard $1 million arm player. I was known in the Chicago Bandits, like Team USA. So how do you take all those and kind of relay them and evolve it over time? And I think it's just one of those cool pieces. Like it really came out great. I'll probably have it up there for the rest of my days.
You should. It's awesome. And I also, for people who watch this on YouTube, they'll see what I'm talking about. But I love the photo of you in the back. You talked about how, why are people bending over pitching now after, having seen you like on the main stage, and you can see that kind of classic Monica Abbott stance on the rubber, and it's awesome. Yeah. It's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, that is funny, right? Like, but it's true. Like, I mean, I remember when I first was doing that, in college, it was on TV, the Women's College World Series, and everyone, I can't tell you how many people ask me, why do you do that? Why do you do that? Why do you bend over when you pitch? Now, what's going on with that position you start in? Why do you do that? Doesn't your back hurt? Like, is it hard to hold? Like, does it actually work? And then about like a couple years later, I would get these messages from people, and it would be like, hey, my daughter tried your pitching style, and she totally threw harder.
You're like, this is what I've been saying, people.
I was like, it worked.
See? That's
But
awesome.
no, I mean, all in good fun. I think it's pretty cool. I mean, when I started pitching like that, I didn't mean for it to be like, you know, a game changing thing, but I think it's really inspired so many youth softball players and people that are in college and even pros now, right? Across the board, like pros in Japan, pros in the US, pros in Europe, like everywhere. So I'm really honored to see that kind of impact and that it translated across multiple languages and worlds and communities, because that's what softball does, and that's freaking awesome. That's so freaking cool, right? Like,
well, and even if people don't do the exact same position you did, I feel like you still inspired people to be themselves, right? Like, it's like you were just being yourself. That's what felt good to you. That's what felt right to you. And now, whatever that looks like for anyone else, they're like, oh, she did that. I can be myself too, which that is so powerful.
Definitely. I love it.
Well, I would talk to you all day, and I actually want to, but I'm going to be respectful of your time because I know we have a few more minutes together. But to wrap up with everybody that comes on the show, I play just a little game called Safer Out.
Okay.
I don't think we got to do this last time. This was either brand new or hadn't started yet when you came on the show last time, but it's really easy. It's just, I'll bring up a topic about softball. And if you like it or you agree with it, you call it safe. If you don't, then you'll call it out.
Okay.
So yeah, you're an umpire, right? So you get to be on the other side instead of, the pitcher in this case. Okay. So the first one is the leaping rule for pitchers in college, meaning college pitchers can't leap. The fact that that's
can or can't.
They currently cannot, like the current rule that stands. Safe or out?
Ooh. Out.
That's what I thought you were going to say. Because it's different than international, right?
It's legal internationally. So why don't we make it legal? If Team USA is pulling from college teams, they should try to follow the international rule book.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I just spoke with Laura Berg recently because I was calling the Oregon State Stanford series.
Nice.
For Pac-12, and she was talking about certain international rules that she's like, I think we should just incorporate this in college, like to help speed the game up and think like the 1 foot in the box, batter's box, stuff like that. But anyway, 100%. Yeah,
100%. Baseball is stealing the softball rules. Like, why don't we just keep advancing the game?
Yeah, 100%. All right, cool. Well, that was the first one. Second one is, you mentioned this briefly earlier, but NIL, safe or out?
Safe is stay. It should stay.
Yeah, safe is stay.
Safe. I think it's a great opportunity. I know. Okay, here's the thing. My thought. I know NIL was meant for like the basketball, like men's basketball and football players, probably those kind of people. But is it going to change the game for women's sports? That's my opinion.
I totally see that as well. Just because it's like, look at the visibility that can exist now. Like, imagine if you and Kat and Lisa all had these types of things in place during your time. Like, game changer. Unbelievable.
It literally proves value.
Yeah.
It proves the value of women's sports and individual female athletes, whether they're an individual sport or a team sport. Yeah.
Very true. All right, the last one is bat flips. Safe or out?
Safe.
Really? Just the pitcher perspective. I'm always curious.
I mean, I'm not going to say that I love it, but I think that, I think it's good for the game. I think it's good. It's exciting. If my teammate did it when I was hit on the team, I would be pumped. It's part of it. The whole like over the head Sam Chow like karate chop. Now that's a bit much. Like, let's not do that. But like, hey, like a little flip, a little style to it.
Yeah,
I'm down with it. I think it's good. I think it's good for the game.
I don't know if anyone even has really truly had an opportunity to do a bat flip on you, but if they were to have, how do you think you would have reacted?
They wouldn't.
You're
Let's
actually
just leave it
right.
like that, okay? Let me rest in my retirement, in my retired life, like just knowing that nobody has or nobody did that I know of, or I didn't see it, or I didn't see it.
That is so perfect, actually. I'm so happy that that's how we're gonna wrap this up because that is spot on. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you again, Monica. This was super fun. I'm so happy to have you back on the show. And I'm excited to
Yeah.
see all that you do off the field now, too.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for having me on. And hey, looking forward to the next time we connect.
Sounds good. Can't really overstate how great it was to reconnect with Monica again. It's not surprising at all that after the huge impact that she has made during her career, that she's already doing it and taking steps in her retirement to have a big impact. Not surprised, excited to see what happens from here. So with that, let's transition to the foul tip of the week. This week's foul tip is about finding balance within. This was actually inspired by another pro pitcher on the baseball side this week, Mark Appel. Some of you might know who he is. He also went to Stanford, actually. We overlapped a little bit when we were in college. For some background, he was the number 1 overall draft pick for the MLB back in 2013. And he had some struggles and injuries, and he actually ended up stepping away from the game by the time 2018 rolled around. Some people said he was a bust, disappointment, etc. But then he came back to the minors, actually, in 2021 and made his major league debut in 2022 with the Phillies, who then went on to the World Series. He was just released by the organization then this past spring. Needless to say, he's been through a lot, and he actually shares a lot of his insight from the journey that he's taken. And a recent example really jumped out at me. So he had tweeted a long thread essentially comparing maintaining balance in nature's ecosystems to maintaining a balance within ourselves and with our mentality. So the quote that really stuck out to me was this. He said, "Grace without discipline is enablement of bad habits in the name of compassion. But discipline without grace is perfectionism that leads to self-sabotage. Both are necessary, but they need to keep each other in check. Balance creates beauty, and beauty creates joy." That's the kind of balance that is hard to strike. You know, it feels so elusive sometimes because how do you figure out a way to push yourself and sort of cut yourself a break at the same time? That's what it feels like you're doing. And I've tended in my life to err on the side of perfectionism. And, you know, if I'm in an interview or something and I'm asked like, well, what's one of your weaknesses? You know, you think you're really smart in responding by saying like, oh, I'm a perfectionist, because you think it makes you look good. Like, oh, I just care so much, you know. But as I've gotten older, I actually have stopped thinking of it as a badge of honor the way that I used to. Because I think it's really more so trying to control things that aren't necessarily controllable, which only creates stress and make things more complicated, you know? So whenever I've tried to control an outcome, it's almost always turned out worse than if I just went with my gut, gave it my best effort, and let it play out. And I am not just talking about softball in this situation. So you might be thinking that you're doing the right thing, but it could actually be self-sabotage. So that part resonated with me. But at the same time, we also know that if we're giving ourselves grace for every little thing, it can just turn into letting ourselves off the hook. Like there has to be some level of accountability, because without it, it's really doing a disservice to ourselves in the moments where we really do need some self-compassion. So like Mark said, you know, the trick is finding that balance and knowing when to do what. I know I'm still working on that every single day. But I love that he said that this balance creates beauty and joy, because that's really what everyone wants in life. You know, at the end of the day, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it's really true. That is success, to get those things in a lot of ways. So that's it. Find balance within. That's the foul tip of the week. You've been listening to Bleav in Softball, part of Bleav Network and presented by Bet Online. The show is available anywhere you get your podcasts, wherever you listen, including Bleav.com and YouTube too. Subscribe to the show, rate the show, and if you liked it, write a review. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bleav in Softball. Again, that's BLEAV. You can reach out to me personally on Twitter at JennaBecerra01 and Instagram at JennaBecerra as well. Thank you for tuning in, and catch you soon.